Man, them holes are big, Terry, and you keep right on making them bigger. Well, I'm going to make this plenum how I want, regardless of how much epoxy it takes or a weld, whatever way I decide to fix it. That's what I'm doing here. My friend stopped by the other day. My friend John, he's a Mopar guy, a very smart Mopar guy. And he can take the same combination as everybody else is using and go about a second or two faster. I might do a video about that because we are on the same page when it comes to stuff with performance. But getting back to this intake, if I told you how many hours I have in just in this plenum right here, you would say you need a doctor. Well, the thing is, I am going for extreme performance here, and on the stock engine that I have right now, low compression, this probably won't even show up. But in the near future, when I pump the compression up and a more aggressive camshaft, we'll see this thing come to life. As a matter of fact, I think this intake will run with a Victor intake. That'd be a single plane, and something up to 8,500 RPM. I've made a lot of changes on this. This intake normally is good till around 6,800 RPM, and with a spacer over 7,000. So, is it worth putting all these holes and making this intake the way that I'm doing this? Is it worth the time and effort? Not to most people. My friend John, getting back to him, when he stopped by, and I got a phone call also from him, he goes, you know, the reason most guys don't run the way they should is because they will not take the time and effort that it takes to do what we do. Because John, he'll look at my stuff and he'll say, cuz that was done last month when you showed it to me. And he'll be amazed that I'm still on something and going a little bit more, finagling things, just doing things I think will work. Now, how much do I know tenth-wise when I do things that will pick up? I don't know sometimes. Other times I do. So, I do know this. I had air in this plenum that was stagnant. And what I mean by that, it didn't want to move in the corners. And I could tell that by when I'm doing my grinding, the metal lays there, and when I blow through it, the metal will just stay in certain areas. It won't move. And then when I taper it in, or make changes, or put a different angle on something, then the metal will blow right out. And it's not how easy it blows out so much as where it's blowing out. So it's centering into the plenum where I wanted it. So it's that way when it hits the floor, it's going to disperse equally. So that's what I'm after here. An equal distribution with the fuel and the air. One thing I noticed, everybody talks about the air flow, but they don't mention what the fuel does too often when they're pouring an intake. To me, I have that in my mind here more than what the air is doing sometimes. And that's has a lot to do with how I finish an intake too. You see a lot of guys talk about their burr finishes and stuff, and well, on an intake, a burr finish is a good way to go. And then again, there are certain areas which I'm going to keep to myself. You're better off smooth up towards the top when the air is crossing over into the plenum, like areas like this here. You're better off getting it somewhat smooth. Now, I will say this, you can put a texture on something and still have it smooth. Not many people talk about that. You'll hear a lot of guys say, I finished off with a 60 or whatever. I'll finish off with a 60 or a 40 or whatever too, or a burr finish. But guess what? One of my things I do is I smooth it back out. So the air can still move over easy, and it still chatters the fuel. That's what I call it, chattering the fuel. You guys can call it atomizing or whatever you want to say. And also, the air does the same thing. A lot of guys will say, well, I noticed when I put the intake or head on the flow bench, it will pick up with a rougher finish. That's the reason it's doing that, because air will slow down on a smooth surface. If you have a surface that's a little bit rough, it will chatter the air, and the air cannot settle. It cannot slow down, so it's going to skip and jump across the area that it's moving. That's my technical way of saying it. So anyway, I always want to take time to say thank you to somebody. And my friend John, he's always been there. He's a no-nonsense guy, and he will tell you in a heartbeat. He's not one of these guys that smooths you and just tell you something. Oh, that looks good, Terry. No, he'll tell you, cuz you might have to, I don't know about that, cuz there's no compliment unless you have it coming with them. And I like that, because you'll get the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, but sometimes the truth will set you free and make you reevaluate what you're doing. I see a lot of guys on YouTube, they're doing some work and they're getting compliments, and I would be hurting their feelings. I hate to say that, but there's just too many guys that are doing things, and they have a big following, and they're being told their work looks fantastic when it's far from acceptable, in my opinion. And that's just how it goes when it comes to porting and performance. You're always going to see things that you might think the guy's wrong about, or it doesn't mean that I'm right when I say something either. I'm just giving you my opinion and my side of looking at things. So I will tell you guys this, getting back to this intake. These areas right here that look like are a little bit high, this metal is very hard in here, and where you're trying to smooth this out and make it all one motion, which that's what I'm up to here. This has like a low spot right here right now. I don't know if you guys can see that, but right here, that would be a dead area for air right now until you bring this all in one motion. This area right here, just leaving this area right here, if I was just use a sanding roll right there and then not taper this end, leave like a low spot, that's a dead area. Until you bring this all in consistently and take that low spot out, this much of the time you'll have a ridge here, and it'll be deeper where you're using your sanding roll, of course, because you're grinding the metal. So you just have to taper it in. And another thing I want to show you guys is this. You don't always have to stay straight when you're doing something. You can crisscross your sanding roll or your carbide bit, whatever you're using. And a lot of times you block somebody, it looks like they're just going back and forth. When the guys are doing this, they'll be actually moving from side to side like that. If you go one motion, it's really not good, because you're basically not covering the whole area when you do that, to be honest. I mean, everybody has their techniques and their ways. I'm not saying it's wrong if you just go back and forth, but I'm just saying you can cover more area crisscross in certain places. So it's all a learning thing when you're porting. It's all opinionated, that's for sure. But one thing I will say is that most people would not put the time into this intake right here, being a dual plane. Like, what are you going to pick up doing that? Well, I think it's going to make a difference. And like I said, a lot of people will say that just because they don't want to look bad, because they're not willing to put the hours in on something like this here. And if they're a head porter or intake porter and they're a professional person, they can't get enough money to put the hours in to do this, because this is very time consuming, unless you're willing to pay $1,000 to somebody to do a dual plane. How many people's going to do that? And then how do you know exactly what's done to it unless the guy has epoxy in it? The only other thing I could do to this intake once I'm finished with it here, as far as I can go with it, is this. The next step would be, which would be a step that probably 1 out of 1,000 people may do, is to cut the intake in half and then re-weld it back together. Well, I'm not getting that far involved. I'm just getting areas that I know can be improved, and I'm willing to epoxy it. That doesn't mean some young fellow watching this YouTube channel grabs the drill and starts grinding and then gets yourself into a situation, because unless you're trying to do something with an intake or a pair of heads and you know what you're doing, don't start it, because you'll wind up with something that just needs a lot of work that probably doesn't get finished, and will have to wind up at a shop. If you wanted to go to a shop, you would go in the first place. So there's nothing worse than taking something that you've messed up to a shop. Them guys do not like that. They would rather do it from the get-go, how they want to do it, instead of trying to take out spots that they see that now you went too deep on and things like that. And the reason I'm bringing this up, this isn't guys that don't know what they're doing. Some guys know mechanics, they know performance, but if they never ported before, then they're new at it. And when you're new at porting, there's just certain things that you're going to run into, especially how hard the metal is in spots, and you dig and you're not paying attention sometimes to a certain other area, and it's easy to mess up things. So if you pay attention to what you're doing, do a little at a time. That's how you want to port if you've never done it before. You just want to take your time and watch what you're doing. You don't want to get in there and just start hogging things out, I'm telling you. You can always remove more metal, but it's cost effective not to have to put it back. You don't want to have somebody weld things if you don't have to. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to go the extra mile right here, and to be honest, this may not show up at all on my engine. Like I've told you guys many times, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I just want to make the point that you might see me get this engine together, and you might say, well, that runs the same as my motor did. I just slapped that intake on there and had the same camshaft, same carburetor. Yeah, and it could even hurt the bottom end, especially something with no converter. This is all due to me having a combination in the future, basically. I want it done. I want it out of the way, and it's actually, I would say 50% more is done to this intake than most machine shops or porting guys would do. So it's just my thing. It's something I'm willing to do. It's something I see with my eye that I don't like in certain areas. And like I said, that intake right there out of the box will run into the 10s. So that might give you a little bit of thinking. If you think, well, I need to get in there and start doing this stuff because that guy, he's on YouTube doing it, there must be a reason for it. It is my reason. Only my reason alone. But I'll tell you my reason is this. My old truck was a sleeper. And if you don't know what a sleeper is something that runs better than it looks. Like somebody will pull up to my old truck and they'll like, oh, that thing's nothing, and you wind up racing the guy and he's like, how'd that truck just beat me? And yeah, that's what I'm going for. I want this to be where I know I did all I could do, didn't leave anything on the table when it comes to the porting. And like I said, the motor is low compression, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that because it's a budget $50 engine, as you guys know that follow the channel. And so that's where we're at with this. So anyway, I hope that makes a little bit of sense to somebody. They think, well, Terry, if you're not going to say it, why would you do it? Well, we'll see it in the future if things work out how I want. And I have some pretty big engines to race against once I get this thing together. If things go as planned, when I get the truck together, I'm going to be racing a couple vehicles that are over 500 cubic inches. So they surely have the advantage on me. And one of them have some very good heads, and he's already mopped up a lot of people on the street. And to be honest with you, he goes on all these truck competitions and where they run just the trucks. He's going to other states and race people, and he's a hard guy to beat. So we're just going to see what we can do, and if we even have a chance against that vehicle. And it would help if I get my truck running first and tune it in and see how it runs before I plan these races. But what do you do when you're a racer? You race. Do you always win? No, you don't. And guys that want to say they do, that they win every race, well, congratulations if you do that, but that's a tough one. That's why you can see the pro stock guys have a number 1 on their window one year, and it would be number 2 the next year in a lot of cases. So I think you guys know where I'm coming from. Back in the day, you had guys say, oh, I beat everybody. I beat this guy. I beat that. Yeah, you probably did. But who'd you race? What did you race against? Did you race some stock little car and you had some things done? There's egos involved when it comes to racing, guys, really. And people that you think are low-key, sometimes they act like that they don't really care how fast their vehicle is and that they're just out there having fun. In the back of their mind, most of the time, they want to win. They want that notoriety. Otherwise, they wouldn't be out there racing in the first place in most cases. But you have guys once in a while, they're just an easygoing guy and they're willing to run somebody. We had a friend that we just lost that was like that, and he had the best attitude, but you had guys that tried to egg him on, and he had a very fast Cleveland engine, and we raced against him, and we were still friends. There was no animosity, a few laughs, and he was a very nice fella. And that's how it should be. But most of the time there is egos involved, and that's what sets me apart from people, because they'll try to race you because they have you covered. They won't race you to see what the outcome is. They just want to try to put up money, and at least around this area, they just want to take your money, and they hope that they know that usually they have more than what you have. That's not hard to do in our case because we don't have a whole lot in our engines and stuff. So that's what YouTube's going to be doing here. My channel is going to be showing you what you can do for low budget stuff instead of $10,000. Everything you see on YouTube's a budget, and then you look and they have all this money in this stuff. We're going to try to keep this where the average guy can do what we do. And even if you don't go to extreme of what I do with stuff, you can still get your vehicle to run very well with some off-the-shelf things. You don't always need special camshafts and stuff. These guys have these channels to make you think that they're superior and that you need their camshafts, you need this, you need that. I'm here to tell you, you don't. If that was the case, you wouldn't run 9s with factory stuff. And with the late model stuff, mid 8s. So keep that in mind. I'm for the average Joe, and that's why I take time to do these videos. I have a way of thinking about things. Everything I say, you don't have to take to heart, but it's things that I know that do work. My friend John did say this. He says, Terry, you really should let guys know when you know something, especially when you've picked up a 10th or 2, that you know that for sure. But I can't say that because somebody could do what I said and slow down a 10th or 2 because I'm not there tuning their stuff. They might not get the carburetor the same. They may not have the same vacuum in the motor that we have. There's a lot of different things when I tell people to do different things here. And that's why I don't like to say it's cut dry to the point. You have to do your own things. You have to try your own things. So with that said, I'm getting back to work here. We had a nice day here today. I decided to jump out here because we've had some cold weather and I need to get this done. This intake could actually go on the way it is right now, all but the holes, with the holes fixed. And it would probably be a lot better on a compression engine, but we're going to see how it works out on a low compression engine. So hang in there, guys. Maybe we'll see this thing on and fire it up one of these days. I'm trying, guys. With that, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch what I'm up to. And I always want to say God bless you. Take care, everybody.